In the summer of 1518, one woman started dancing in the street and never stopped. Within a month, hundreds of her neighbors were doing the same thing. According to one surviving account, as many as 15 people were dying a day at the worst of it. Nobody forced them to dance. Nobody has ever fully explained why they couldn't stop. To understand why this happened, you need to know what Strasbourg was like in 1518. It was a real, prosperous city of around 20,000 people, part of the Holy Roman Empire, sitting on the Rhine River. But underneath that, the previous years had been brutal. The region had just come through famine, flooding, and outbreaks of diseases including smallpox. A year earlier, in 1517, Martin Luther had publicly challenged the Catholic Church, and religious tension was rising fast. Historians who study this event generally agree this matters. A population under that much sustained stress is exactly the kind of environment where something like this tends to happen. On July 14, 1518, a woman known to history as Frau Trophia stepped into a street in Strasbourg and began to dance. No music, no celebration. According to multiple chronicles written at the time, she simply could not stop. She danced for somewhere between several hours and several days, depending on the account, until she collapsed from exhaustion. And then, when she woke up, she started again. Within about a week, dozens of other people had joined her. One contemporary chronicle puts the number at 34 people within 4 days. Within a month, estimates from historical sources range from around 50 up to as many as 400 people dancing in the streets at once. Historians don't agree on the exact number, because the surviving records themselves don't agree. This wasn't gentle swaying. Accounts describe bloodied feet, collapsed bodies, and people dancing for so long they lost consciousness. Several near-contemporary chronicles report that some of the dancers died from exhaustion, heart failure, or stroke. It's worth being honest here. A few modern historians have pointed out that some of these chronicles were written down decades after the event. So the exact death toll is less certain than the basic fact that the dancing itself happened. Here's the part of this story that's almost stranger than the dancing itself, and this part is unusually well documented, because it's recorded directly in Strasbourg's own city council archives, not just secondhand chronicles. The city's physicians, using the medical theory of the time, decided the dancers had overheated blood, and that the cure was to let them dance it out. So the city council cleared out guild halls, built a wooden stage, and literally hired musicians, drummers, pipers, violinists, to keep the dancers dancing. It made things worse. More people joined in, including, according to some accounts, a few of the musicians themselves. Within days, the council reversed course completely. They banned public dancing and music throughout the city. At that point, the explanation shifted from medical to religious. The belief at the time was that the dancers were cursed by Saint Vitus, a Catholic saint associated with dancing affliction. The council had the remaining dancers transported, by wagon over multiple days, to a shrine of Saint Vitus outside the city. There, priests gave them small crosses, blessed red shoes, holy water, and prayed over them. According to the records, this is when the outbreak finally faded. By early September 1518, it had ended. This is the part where I have to be honest with you. Nobody actually knows for certain, but there are real theories, and they're worth understanding. One early theory says the dancers accidentally ate bread made from rye contaminated with a fungus called ergot, which can cause convulsions. It's a popular explanation, but several historians point out a problem. Ergot poisoning typically causes blackened, gangrenous limbs, and there's no record of that happening here. It also doesn't explain why this kept happening repeatedly across different parts of Europe over several centuries. The theory most widely accepted by historians today argued most thoroughly by medical historian John Waller, is that this was a form of mass psychogenic illness, sometimes called mass hysteria, a real physical reaction that can spread through a population under extreme collective stress, especially when there's an existing cultural belief, like the St. Vitus curse, that gives the body's panic a specific shape to take. Under that theory, the famine, disease, and religious turmoil in Strasbourg weren't just background details. They may have been the actual cause. A smaller number of historians have proposed it may have been linked to a religious sect or ritual practice. We genuinely don't know which explanation is correct. What we do know, because it's recorded in multiple independent sources, is that it happened. The Strasbourg dancing plague wasn't even the only one. Historians have documented around 20 similar outbreaks across medieval and Renaissance Europe between 1200 and 1600. Strasbourg's was just the most thoroughly recorded because the printing press meant more people wrote it down. 500 years later, we still don't have a final answer. And honestly, that's what makes this one of the strangest true stories in history. Not that something bizarre happened, but that it happened in front of an entire city, was written down by multiple eyewitnesses, and we still can't fully explain it. If you like uncovering the strangest, truest stories history has buried, this is exactly the kind of thing this channel does every week. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.